Captain Elias Ward was tired. He had been flying missions for almost a decade now through war zones, asteroid fields, alien battlefields, and today was supposed to be simple, a supply drop. Nothing more. But nothing ever went as planned in the outer zones. His ship, the Arrowhead, had been hit by stray debris during a pirate skirmish. Engines damaged, crash landing confirmed. He didn't even know what planet he was falling toward. Yelarifor was green and wild. The jungle was thick and endless, filled with strange sounds and glowing insects. The air was heavy, the gravity strong. Elias didn't care. He just needed parts, a signal boost, anything to call for rescue. He carried a worn backpack, an old pistol, and a strong will to survive. After 3 days of hiking through thick vines and dangerous terrain, he heard something strange, a sound too soft to be a beast, a voice, weak, almost a whisper. Elias followed it. In a shaded grove, surrounded by broken trees and burn marks, he saw her. Tall, slender, not human. Her skin was pale blue, with silver marks running across her arms and cheeks like natural tattoos. Her eyes were closed, her breathing shallow. She wore what looked like royal armor, though most of it was torn. A faint golden symbol glowed on her chest plate. She was bleeding from her side. Her leg looked broken. She was trying to crawl toward a fallen staff just out of reach. She looked at him. Not with fear, not with hate, just tired eyes. Help or leave, she whispered. Elias didn't move at first. He had seen many alien species before, but this one was different. She looked proud, even in pain. Strong, even while dying. All right, he said finally. I'll help. He knelt beside her and pulled open his med kit. Her blood was silver blue and smelled faintly like mint. She flinched at first, then let him work. He wrapped her leg, cleaned the wound, and gave her water. She didn't say much, only stared at him as if confused. Why help? She asked, voice soft but sharp. Elias shrugged. Because you're alive. That's reason enough. She studied him. You're not Viren. Not my kind. Nope, he replied. Human. She blinked. Strange species. You're not the first to say that. She gave a small smile. Just a flicker. Then passed out. He stayed the night in the grove, building a small fire and keeping watch. He saw shadows in the trees, others searching, but they never came close. He guessed they were looking for her. In the morning, she woke up. Name? Elias asked. She hesitated, then said, Kaelari. He nodded. Elias, I must return, she said, trying to stand but falling again. Elias caught her. Easy, you're not going anywhere like this. You don't understand, she said, her voice gaining strength. There's a civil division, rebels within my court. If they find me, I die. If I don't return, my people fall. Elias looked at her, then the jungle. He had no idea who she really was, but something in her tone told him it was serious. I'll get you out, he said. He built a stretcher from branches and rope, pulling her slowly through the jungle for hours. They avoided patrols, covered their tracks, and crossed the river with only a fallen tree as a bridge. Kaelari stayed silent most of the time, but her eyes never left Elias. She seemed surprised every time he made a choice to protect her. You could have left me, she said once. Why not? Elias gave a tired smile. You needed help. That's all. At last, they reached a clearing where a strange alien beacon pulsed with light. Kaelari activated it with a flick of her hand. Ship appeared moments later, sleek, dark, and fast. Viren soldiers rushed out, their weapons raised until they saw her, Empress. They cried, falling to one knee. Elias blinked. Empress? Kaelari stood on her good leg, leaning on her staff. She turned to Elias one last time. You saved more than me. You saved the nation. He scratched the back of his head. Well, that's a bit dramatic. She leaned closer. Name, rank, and ship. Elias smiled and gave it to her. Then, without another word, he stepped back and let them take her. Before the veering ship disappeared into the clouds, she looked out the window one last time, eyes locked on him. And then she was gone. Back on his own damaged ship, days later. Elias repaired the final systems and left Yellari IV behind. It had been a wild detour, sure. But he had done his part. One favor for a stranger. Nothing more. He never expected to see her again. He never expected to become part of a new empire. He certainly never expected her to come back for him with love, power, and a crown. But fate remembers kindness. 3 years passed. Captain Elias Ward had nearly forgotten the strange planet, the jungle, and the injured alien woman he had once helped. Life as a human scout kept him busy missions. Supply runs, occasional skirmishes with pirates or mercenaries. It was never boring, but something always felt unfinished. One morning, while stationed at a trade port on the Outer Rim, Elias was called to the command tower. A message had arrived. Not just any message, a royal message, with markings in a language he didn't know. The translator read the words aloud. To Captain Elias Ward of the Human Coalition. You are summoned by the Empress Kaelari of the Virian Dominion. Your presence is required on Yellari 4. Refusal is not recommended. The officers stared at him. You know a Virian Empress? One asked. Elias blinked. I guess. Yeah, I helped her once. Thought she forgot. But clearly, she hadn't. 2 days later, a Virian royal vessel arrived. It was unlike any ship Elias had ever seen, smooth and silent, shaped like a silver bird. Guarded by tall, armored warriors with long staffs and unreadable expressions, they didn't say a word. They just motioned for Elias to follow. He boarded. The journey was quiet. The ship moved fast, far faster than human tech could, and reached Yellari IV in just a few hours. But it wasn't the same jungle world he remembered. The wild trees were mostly gone, replaced with clean roads, towers of white stone, floating gardens, and glowing walkways. Virian citizens moved calmly through the city, dressed in fine robes and polished armor. Everything looked peaceful, powerful. United. The ship landed on a tall platform near a wide palace. A crowd waited. As Elias stepped out, horns played a strange but beautiful melody. People bowed. Some just stared in shock. Others whispered his name. Then he saw her. Kaelari. She stood at the top of the marble stairs, tall and proud, wearing a long dark blue cloak lined with gold. Her silver markings shone in the sunlight. She looked stronger than before, healthy, confident, royal. But her eyes still held the same sharpness he remembered. Captain Elias, she said loudly. You came. He gave an awkward smile. Hard to say no when the message sounds like a threat. The crowd laughed softly, unsure if it was allowed. But Kaelari smiled, truly smiled, and stepped forward. I told my people about you, she said. The man who carried an empress through the jungle. The human who helped without asking for anything. I figured you'd forget, Elias said. I could never forget, she replied. He was led inside the palace. It was a place of light and silence. Servants offered him fruit, drinks, and robes. He refused most of it. Finally, Kaelari met him alone in a high tower overlooking the city. You said you owed me nothing, Elias said. So, why call me back? She turned to face him. Because you changed everything. He frowned. By helping you walk. Yes, she said. And because of that favor, I was able to return, take the throne, and stop a civil war. I unified the Virian. I became empress not just by birth, but by strength, because of you. Elias was quiet. He didn't know what to say. Kaelari stepped closer. I made a vow that day, that if I lived, if I ruled, I would find you, and I would give you something no other human has been given. What? Elias asked. She raised her hand. Her voice echoed through the room. By the right of flame and star, I name Elias Ward, human of Terra, as royal consort, king by choice, partner of the Virian crown. Elias stood frozen. Wait, what? He asked. You're making me a king. Yes, Kaelari said. You saved me, guided me, believed in me when my own people had turned. You left without asking for a reward. That kind of honor is rare. I didn't do it for a title. I know, she said. That's why you deserve it. That night, Elias couldn't sleep. He was given a royal room with soft beds, warm lights, and a view of the stars. But his mind was racing. A human maid king in an alien empire. It didn't make sense, yet a part of him felt it was right. The people respected him, Kaelari trusted him, and for the first time in years, he didn't feel like a lost scout. He felt seen. The next morning, a ceremony was held, simple but powerful. Kaelari stood beside Elias in front of thousands of Virian citizens. She wore her crown. He wore a ceremonial robe made of layered cloth, half human in design, half Virian. She held his hand, lifted it high, and spoke. This man saved a stranger. This man chose honor over reward. This man now stands with me not as servant, not as symbol, but as king by heart and hand. The crowd cheered. And for the first time, Elias smiled without confusion. He wasn't just a visitor anymore. He belonged. Later that evening, under the twin moons, Kaelari joined him on the palace balcony. You still don't understand everything, she said. I'm trying, Elias replied. You will, in time. But know this: I didn't bring you here to pay a debt. Then why? Kaelari looked into his eyes. Because I love you, and I want to build a future with you beside me. Elias didn't speak for a moment. Then he reached out, took her hand, and whispered, Then let's rule it together. Captain Elias Ward, now King Elias of the Virian Empire, was still trying to understand how everything had changed. He had gone from wandering the galaxy in a small scout ship to standing in a golden palace beside an alien empress. One good deed, one small favor, had brought him into a world of power, tradition, and eyes that never stopped watching him. Elias was not used to royal life every day. Someone dressed him in fine robes. Servants brought him food he couldn't name. People. But when he walked past, even when he told them not to, he felt like a guest, not a ruler. Kaelari noticed. You walk like you're lost, she said one morning, watching him from her throne. Elias looked around the royal hall. Tall white pillars, glowing banners, and guards standing like statues. I feel like I don't belong here, he said. Your people bow. They whisper. Some stare like I'm their future. Others look at me like I'm a mistake. Kaelari stood and walked toward him. That's because you are something new. The first outsider in our history to stand beside the throne. I didn't mean to break traditions, he said. She smiled. Sometimes traditions must break before something better can be built. Over the next few weeks, Elias was asked to attend councils, meet noble families, and give small speeches. He didn't know all the customs, but he spoke honestly, and that surprised many of the Virian. At one council meeting, to high nobles argued over land rights. Elias, watching quietly, finally spoke. Why not share it, half each, and work it together? The room went silent. One noble asked, Share with a rival? Elias shrugged. You're not rivals anymore. You serve the same crown. Build something together. To everyone's surprise, both nobles agreed. News of the human king's logic spread fast. He wasn't like Virian rulers of the past. He laughed, he listened, and he didn't speak in riddles or codes. He said things simply, directly. People found it refreshing, but not everyone was pleased. In the shadows of the city, whispers grew. An outsider wears our crown. He will ruin our traditions. He must be removed. Kaelari grew tense. She ordered extra guards around Elias, but he didn't want to hide behind walls. I didn't come here to be protected all the time, he said. If I'm king, I need to understand your people, their fears, their hopes. She sighed. Then you must learn their past. That night, Kaelari took Elias to the vault of memory, a place deep beneath the palace, hidden from public view. Inside were glowing walls covered in moving images, memories of Virian history, stored in light and sound. War, peace, betrayal, unity. Everything the people had lived through was recorded here. Elias watched in silence as Kaelari showed him the civil war she had survived. He saw her wounded, alone in the jungle, just before he found her. I was prepared to die, she said softly, and then you came, a stranger, a human. You don't need to keep thanking me. Elias said, I'm not thanking you. She replied, I'm reminding you why your presence matters, why it scares them, because you represent change, and change always has enemies. Days later, A public celebration was held in the capital, a festival of peace marking 3 years since the end of the Civil War. Elias rode beside Kaelari on a tall floating platform, waving to crowds. People cheered. Music filled the air, but something felt wrong. His eyes caught a figure on a nearby rooftop. To focus, then a sudden flash. Down, Elias shouted, pulling Kaelari behind him as a plasma bolt struck the shield in front of him. Guards swarmed. The attacker vanished. Kaelari's hand gripped Elias's tightly. "They just made a mistake," she said. "They thought hurting you would break me. Instead, it lit a fire." That night, Elias sat in the royal garden, looking up at the twin moons. His chest still hurt from the impact. But he was alive. Kaelari sat beside him. "I didn't think being king would be so dangerous," Elias said. "It's not the crown they fear," she said. "It's the bond between us." Elias turned to her. "Do you regret it, choosing me?" She shook her head. "Never. You gave me strength when I had nothing. I will stand by you, no matter what comes." The next day, Elias made a choice. He stood before the high assembly, in front of nobles, generals, and citizens. "I didn't ask for this role," he said. "I'm not varying by blood. But I care for this empire because I care for your empress, and I care for peace." He paused. "If I must earn your trust, I will. I'll walk your cities, listen to your people, learn your ways. I won't rule from a throne. I'll rule from among you." Some nobles grumbled. Others stared and thought. A few even nodded in respect. Kaelari, standing beside him, placed her hand on his shoulder. "This is why he is king." That night, Elias found a new robe laid on his bed. It was stitched in the colors of both human and varying emblems, one heart to worlds. He smiled. Maybe he didn't come here to rule. Maybe he came here to change, and that change had just begun. King Elias Ward was changing. He was no longer just the human scout who saved a stranger. Now he was part of an empire walking through high councils, helping shape laws, and speaking directly with people from every corner of the Varian Dominion. But the more he changed, the more dangerous things became. Kaelari noticed it first. Guards had started reporting more threats, notes left in shadowed corners, coded messages, stolen weapons from supply rooms. The attackers who had missed Elias at the Peace Festival were not acting alone. They were part of something bigger. They don't want reform, Kaelari said during a private meeting. They want the old ways, the warlords, the pure-blood rule. They hate that I'm human, Elias said. They fear that you're loved, she corrected. By me, and by the people. One morning, Elias joined Kaelari at the training arena. Varian nobles had gathered for combat trials in ancient tradition. Though Elias wasn't expected to fight, Kaelari had arranged something special. "You will train today," she said, handing him a wooden staff. Elias raised an eyebrow. "Is this your idea of a date?" Kaelari smiled. "It's time you showed them you're not just a symbol." The arena was round, sunlit, and surrounded by dozens of high-ranking citizens. Some watched with interest, others with doubt. Elias faced his first opponent, a young noble with fast feet and sharp eyes. The match was quick but rough. Elias lost the first round, but won the second with clever footwork and unexpected moves. By the third match, Elias was bleeding from a cut above his eye, but he stood tall. "He fights like no one else," one noble whispered. "He fights like a human," said another. Kaelari stood and announced, "And yet, he wins." The crowd clapped, not loudly, but enough to show respect. Elias bowed, wiped the blood from his brow, and smiled through the pain. That night, Elias found Kaelari watching the stars alone from a high balcony. "I thought I'd embarrass you out there," he said, walking beside her. She shook her head. "You did exactly what I hoped. You showed strength without arrogance. The Varian respect warriors, but more than that, they respect those who fight with purpose." Elias leaned on them, railing. "They're starting to believe in me." "Yes," she said, "and that's why they'll come after you again." The next attack came just days later. This time, it wasn't subtle. A blast struck the eastern palace tower just before dawn. Fire and dust filled the sky. Guards rushed in from all sides. Elias and Kaelari were already awake, training together. Before sunrise, They ran toward the blast dot within minutes. They found the injured guards and the attackers' three masked figures, fast and silent. But this time, Elias didn't wait. He charged. His staff knocked one attacker down. A second came at him with a blade, but Kaylari blocked it with her own. The third tried to escape, but was caught by royal guards. When the masks were removed, Kaylari froze. One of them was a former noble, someone who had once stood beside her in the royal court. Someone trusted. Elias looked at her. You knew him. She nodded slowly. He swore loyalty and betrayed it. That evening, the court demanded justice. The prisoners were brought forward, and Kaylari stood tall in front of the throne. Her voice was calm, but her eyes burned with fire. This is not just rebellion, she said. It is betrayal. Some nobles clapped, others looked nervous. Elias stepped forward. Your empress has shown mercy before, but this time she shows strength. The rebels were sentenced to exile, stripped of rank, sent to a prison where varying laws still held power. It was harsh. But the empire needed order. Later, Elias sat with Kaylari in the quiet temple garden, both of them silent. I knew him since we were children, she said softly. He trained with me, fought beside me, and now he tried to kill us. Elias didn't have words, so he reached out and held her hand. You were right, he said finally. This crown, it's not just about power, it's about trust. And sometimes, losing that hurts more than battle. Kaylari leaned her head on his shoulder. You are not just king because I love you. You are king because you feel what others won't. You lead from the heart. The next morning, Elias made a bold choice. He ordered a full inspection of the palace guard, military ranks, and noble houses. Any who had links to the rebel group were questioned. Many confessed quietly, choosing exile over dishonor. For the first time in centuries, the palace was cleaned of secret enemies. The people heard of this and they celebrated. The human king had not only survived another attack, but stood firm, protected the empress, and restored order. Statues were carved in his image, and stories began to spread across the empire, not just of a man who helped a stranger, but of a king who earned his crown. One evening, as the red sun set behind the mountains, Kaylari stood beside Elias at the palace gates. This empire nearly broke, she said, but we are stronger now. Elias looked at her. And we're not done yet, she nodded. No, because soon we will face something even greater. He turned to her. What do you mean? Kaylari's eyes narrowed toward the distant stars. My sister is alive, and she's coming. The palace was quieter than usual, but the air felt heavy. King Elias Ward stood beside Empress Kaylari, watching the stars twinkle over Yelari 4. Their peace was fragile. My sister is coming, Kaylari said softly. Elias frowned. Your sister? I thought she was lost. She was thought lost, Kaylari replied. But she survived the civil war. She has allies, power, and a claim to the throne. The room grew colder. The news spread quickly. Nobles whispered in dark halls. Soldiers prepared for battle. The trial of rule was called a tradition where challengers fought for the right to lead. If Kaylari and Elias won, their rule would be forever accepted. If they lost, both could die. Elias trained harder than ever. He learned varying combat swift moves, staff techniques, mental focus. Kaylari trained beside him, stronger and fiercer than ever. But Elias knew this war was more than swords and shields. It was about loyalty, minds, and hearts. The day of the trial arrived. The arena was packed. Citizens, nobles, and warriors watched in silence, one by one. Challengers stepped forward, each stronger and more cunning than the last. Elias faced warriors who attacked with skill and rage, but he used his human unpredictability and calm to survive. Kaylari watched proudly. After winning several matches, only one challenger remained. The crowd gasped as the final opponent removed their helmet. It was Kaylari's older sister, Lyra. Her eyes were cold and filled with anger. Lyra spoke, voice loud and clear. You stole my throne. You betrayed our family. And you brought a human to rule over us? Kaylari stepped forward. This throne is not stolen. It is earned. Elias looked at Lyra. This isn't just a fight, he said. It's a chance to end our pain. The battle began. Lyra was fast and powerful. She knew every varying move and trick. But Elias and Kaelari fought together, protecting each other, trusting each other. The fight was fierce. Sparks flew. The crowd held their breath. At one moment, Elias was knocked down, but Kaelari shielded him. Elias got up and helped her. Together, they pushed Lyra back. Lyra faltered but refused to give up. As the fight went on, Elias saw the pain behind Lyra's anger. He lowered his staff. Stop, he said. This isn't the way. Lyra hesitated. Elias continued. We can share the crown. We can heal the empire, not break it. Lyra looked at them, Kaelari's steady gaze and Elias's honest eyes. For a moment, the anger softened. She lowered her weapon. The trial ended with a new agreement. Lyra would join the council as a leader, but would not take the throne. Kaelari and Elias would rule together, not just as empress and king, but as a united family. The empire rejoiced. Peace returned. Elias felt a deep pride. He wasn't just a human who helped a stranger anymore. He was a king who helped build a new future. That night, under the twin moons, Elias and Kaelari stood together. You made me a king, Elias said. Kaelari smiled. And you made me stronger. They looked at the stars, ready for whatever came next. The halls of the palace were filled with tension. Kaelari's sister, Lyra, had returned not as an enemy with a sword raised, but as a challenge in the shadows. Though the trial of rule was over, her presence loomed like a storm on the horizon. King Elias Ward knew the real battle was only beginning. One morning, while the sun painted the sky orange, Kaelari and Elias met in the council chamber. Lyra demands the throne, Kaelari said quietly. She says the trial was unfair. Elias nodded. And you? I will never give her the crown, Kaelari said. But I don't want war. Elias placed a hand on her shoulder. Then we need a new way. Elias called for a meeting with all nobles, generals, and leaders, including Lyra herself. The chamber filled with murmurs. Many doubted the human king's bold idea. He stood, calm and steady. We have fought, and fought hard, Elias began. But this empire needs peace that lasts not just by force, but by choice. He looked directly at Lyra. I propose a new way to rule, one that shares power, respects tradition, and allows us all to grow. The room fell silent. Lyra rose, eyes sharp. Share the crown with a human? Rule with my sister who stole it. Elias smiled gently. Not steal. Earn. The empire is ours, Lyra said. Not his. Elias took a breath. Then let us find a way that honors all of us, a council of equals, a crown shared by trust. Not just blood. After hours of talks, heated debates, and long silences, the leaders reached an agreement. Kaelari would remain empress. Elias would be consort king, first human to hold such a title. Lyra would join the council as a chief advisor, respected and heard. Together, they would guide the empire into a new age. Days later, the ceremony was held in the Great Hall. The citizens of Yellari the Fourth gathered in thousands, cheering under the twin moons. Kaelari wore her crown, shining with stars and fire. Elias stood beside her, proud and steady, a symbol of unity. When the high priest placed the ring of unity on Elias's finger, the crowd erupted in joy. He was no longer just a human scout. He was a king. That night, Elias and Kaelari stood on the palace balcony, hand in hand. Did you ever imagine this? Kaelari asked. Not in my wildest dreams, Elias replied. Kaelari smiled softly. You saved me once in the jungle. Now, you saved the whole empire. Elias looked at the stars. Maybe fate remembers kindness, but I think it's us who choose what comes next. In the weeks that followed, the empire began to change. Old grudges faded. New friendships grew. Humans and varying worked side by side. Elias often walked the city streets, talking to citizens, learning their hopes and fears. He was no longer just a king on a throne, he was a leader among his people. One afternoon, a child ran up to Elias, holding a small flower. For you, King Elias, the child said with bright eyes. Elias knelt and took the flower. Thank you, he said. "I promise to protect all of you." The child smiled and ran back to the crowd. Back in the palace, Kailari watched Elias with quiet pride. "He did more than save me," she whispered. "He saved us all." Elias looked up, hearing her words. "We did it together," he said. Kailari nodded. The twin moons shone down as the couple stood united, ready to face the future. A human and an alien. To worlds, one crown. A new story had begun.